Hi everyone, so our next step in dealing with circular or cylindrical features is learning how to draw circles in isometric. So you've done an activity so far where you've drawn cylindrical features on 2D drawings. Now it's time to foray into the world of isometric. So we've got a simple shape here. It's essentially a rectangular prism. It could be a piece of plate with a hole through it. And what we're going to do is start off by drawing a isometric of the piece of plate itself, and then the square that's in the middle. This is essentially going to be a construction line. So this is going to be a construction line that represents the diameter. Okay, so we draw a construction line. The hole is 4 units in diameter, and so we make a construction line. We draw basically a box that is 4 by 4, and then we will mark off the quadrants, so the 4 midpoints of the construction lines that make up the square. So let me draw on this screen here with the blue. So what they've done on this slide is they've first drawn through the midpoints of each line to mark the center of the circle. And then what they've done is, if you look at this square, there is an acute angle, so an angle less than 90 degrees, and there's an obtuse angle. And what they've done is, from the obtuse angle, they've created a vertex. And they've drawn a line from the vertex to the opposite midpoint line. And they've done the same with the other line that makes up this vertex here. And then they've gone to the other obtuse angle and they've drawn a line to the opposite midpoint line. And what that's done is that's created some lines that allow us to draw the isometric circle. Okay, we're going to break up the circle or the elliptical shape that's going to represent the circle. We're going to break it up into 4 separate arcs. And I'm going to attempt to draw this with my mouse. We will also do this by hand in a few minutes here. But if I attempt to draw this, there is a long radius arc, there is a short radius arc, and another long radius arc that make up the isometric circle. And what I want you to see here is the purpose of drawing the lines radiating from the obtuse angles right here. So I'll just kind of make a green blob. This is the obtuse angle. These lines intersect and they create references for the radius. So the radius of this short arc is as long as this line here that I've drawn. Okay, so you don't have to measure this. This is just a method to eyeball and approximate the proportions of this isometric circle. And so it gives us a point to draw to when we create our arc. Okay? And if you look at the long radius, the larger radius, or larger radius curve, its radius is the length of this line. Okay, so if I were to draw another line and make it the length of the other 2 respective lines, it marks out kind of the midpoint of the larger radius arc. Okay, so this looks pretty scientific. Again, in the real world, we have CAD to help us with these types of views, but if you were sketching something by hand and you wanted to look pretty good, this is a technique that you could use. I'm going to show you a more concise method with the pencil and paper in a few moments from now, but let me just advance the slide to kind of show you what it would look like. So I will draw again the radii here, the radiuses. So look at where these lines intersect. These initial green lines that I drew represent the radius of the short arc that lives in the acute angle part of the construction square. Okay, again, we're getting pretty technical here. I don't expect you to be this technical when we're drawing these things by hand. Okay, so this arc, its radius is mapped out by these 3 lines. Okay, so we can kind of plot these points and you can kind of connect the dots. Okay, but let me show you how I'm going to draw this, and a method that you can kind of deploy. So I've drawn the shape. So I'm going to draw some construction lines that represent the space where I'm going to draw this isometric circular or cylindrical feature. So there's my construction box. It's 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 4. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this method is okay, you don't have to get super technical like the previous slides. I like to mark out the quadrants like so, because what I'm doing, when I say quadrants, I mean the quadrants of the circle. They happen to be the midpoints of these construction lines. And what I like to do is I like to just kind of warm up and draw some lines to get myself ready to draw some arcs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these quadrant markings to be the start point and end point of my arcs. So I'm going to have an arc, I'm going to have 4 arcs. I'm going to have a short radiused arc, okay, and 2 of those, and 2 long radiused arcs. And I'm going to approximate when I draw the curve. So I know in the acute part of the construction box it's going to be a tighter radius, and I'm going to try to do this in one fluid sort of motion. So I'm going to start here with the short arc, end here with the short arc. Then I'm going to start here with the larger radius arc and end at this quadrant. And then I'm back to the short radius arc and then finish with the long arc. So there's 4 sort of arcs, if you will. So I think that looks fairly reasonable, and if you use this method, this is good enough for the purposes of our course and for doing a hand sketch. Okay, I could try to measure this out or draw the lines radiating from the obtuse angles like so. So I could draw them out like this from the obtuse angles, and then I could say, oh, okay, I could actually, if I really wanted to get technical, I could measure this particular line and then mark it out. So mark out the midpoint of the arc, and I could connect the dots and be a little more technical. This looks a little flat right here, but again, doing this by hand. We have CAD. We're just trying to build some skills to make decent 3D sketches. So then I'm going to clean this up with my eraser. Let's clean this up. Get rid of the construction lines. So you can clean it up. I drew my lines darker so you can see them. Usually I draw my construction lines lighter so they erase a little easier. But I'm not finished yet. Let me go back to the slides. So you have to be careful and be aware that in some cases you may see the other edge of the cylindrical feature. So what you have to do in this case, if I give you a task, well, I will give you a task to draw some isometric features, is you're going to have to confirm whether or not you would see the other edge of the cylindrical feature. And how would you do that? Well, what you would do is you would imagine or basically map out the other surface on the isometric paper. You're going to draw from this edge, you're going to draw your construction 4x4 box, and then you're going to superimpose this cylindrical feature in the construction box. So you need to check this to create a correct view. When we get to using Inventor in the winter, in the Inventor course that I teach, we will be creating 3D models. We'll be able to make isometric views with the CAD software, and this won't become a concern. But again, these are just some techniques on drawing circles in isometric when you need to come up with a quick hand sketch. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions. Have some fun drawing some isometric circles.